Hi there, hope you're having a lovely day so far. Well, 2020 will undoubtedly be a year that we will never forget. Starting with our devastating bushfires, drought, climate disruption, and now the COVID-19 pandemic. Well, on a positive note, in recent weeks, we've seen the inarguably encouraging effects that social isolation has brought our planet, with animals returning to their natural habitat and reduced pollution in major cities. It's almost like Mother Earth, or Gaia, as she's also known, is being allowed to heal, rejuvenate, and just breathe a sigh of relief for the first time in thousands of years. Each of these events should be teaching us something, and when we learn as adults, it's our responsibility to teach lessons to our children to ensure that history just doesn't repeat itself. Children naturally have a strong connection with our natural world, and it's our role to protect our planet for the sake of our children, for their children's children, and just for generations to come. So to talk to us about this today is our special guest, Sally Gillepsie. Now, Sally is a writer and a lecturer in the fields of eco-psychology and climate psychology. Now, Sally gained her PhD at the Western Sydney University, researching the psychological experience of engaging with climate issues. Now, Sally then wrote her book, Climate Crisis and Consciousness, Reimagining Our World and Ourselves, to make what she learned accessible to the general public. Now, thank you so much for joining us today, Sally. How are you?
I'm well today, thank you, Rachel, and I'm delighted to be here.
Very grateful for your time. And there's really lots to talk about on this topic. Now, to begin with, isn't it so interesting that leading up to the coronavirus pandemic, that there was such media hype in the media about climate change, and every other conversation on TV, on the radio, was really sort of based on or around it. But since then, it's really hardly been anything mentioned. I'd love to know initially, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think it's understandable that we only focus on one crisis at the time. However, the reality is, in an ecological world, crises are not separated. So what we've come to understand about this virus and many other viruses transmitted from animal to human is that they do come out of ecological disruption. In this case, wild rainforests are destroyed. It drives animals out of the rainforest like bats. They become sickened, and that then gets transmitted on to humans. So we do need to keep an eye particularly on what's happening around climate, because in the natural world the effects of the warming climate are intensifying, and the fact is that yes, we've got the COVID virus crisis right now, but that will not stop the other climate-driven effects increasing until we really tackle the prime causes of the climate. I think we will see more in the media as we talk more about economic recovery, because we have this tremendous opportunity here and big choices to make about how we do build the economy up. And this is a great opportunity to get behind renewable energies, sustainable industries, and regenerative agriculture, all of which will help to reduce carbon emissions in the atmosphere.
And I think it's really important for people to be able to see the connection between climate change and the pandemic. Do you think a lot of people have connected those dots yet, or not at all?
No, because there's still research going on. However, it seems pretty clear now that this virus did come from sick bat colonies, and the bats are struggling a lot within natural habitats because of so much has been destroyed. But another big source of pandemics and viruses, of course, is from factory farming. And the kind of, again, the animals sicken when they're crowded together, when they're fed a lot of antibiotics or different kinds of drugs. And also we are seeing more anthrax come from the northern hemisphere due to permafrost melting. And that, as that happens, the corpses of reindeer with anthrax get uncovered, and the anthrax can jump over to human populations. So there's a lot of reasons why the climate crisis can drive pandemics, as well as have all sorts of other really bad health effects.
Mm. And you're known for being supportive and encouraging, both in relation to learning how to navigate the emotional ups and downs of climate change awareness, as well as developing a greater attunement with our natural world. So I'd love to know, what are your thoughts on what the world is going through at the moment, specifically about the COVID-19 pandemic?
Well, there's many lessons. I think one of the things that comes across is it's reminding us we're biological beings, you know, that our lives are dependent on our health, and our health is dependent on clean air, clean water, good sanitation, you know, the right things we need to support good health. So I think that brings us back to the basics, and it brings us back to really questioning what the values are in life. I think both with the bushfire crisis and with COVID, we've had to think a lot about where our food comes from and what supports food security. It's interesting that the nurseries are all sold out of their seeds and their seedlings. So, you know, it's bringing us back to the basics of what supports a good life. And I think that's very helpful, given that the climate crisis is driven by very high consumption, often of goods that really are not necessary to a good life.
Yes, I love that point. It's really making us reevaluate our personal values, our beliefs, and bringing us back to, I guess, what is the most important thing in life. So, and things in life. So thank you for that point. Now, we published your article titled Loving Children, Loving Nature. For someone who hasn't read the article yet, can you please give us an overview of what it's about and just tell us what inspired you to write it?
Well, I wanted to choose this as my first post for Kiddipedia because I think it's just so basic. It's basic to children's health and happiness. It's basic to all of our health and happiness, how much connection we have with the living world, both in terms of what that gives to us at a physical level, at a health level, an emotional, a psychological level, but also how it supports a healthy society and culture. Because as we were talking about before, a good life is based on a healthy environment and a healthy ecosystems. And there is so much joy of being in the natural world. So that's what I wanted to start with.
Yeah, and as you beautifully mentioned in your article, children really start life with an affinity for our natural world. And I would love to read a paragraph to give some light further into your perspective. So using your words, young children start life with an affinity for our natural world, instinctively seeking out the company of animals, birds, trees, rocks, shells, and places for their special companions and friends, physically experiencing our world through encounters with tadpoles, wind, rock, pools, caves, ants, or autumn leaves, weaves into the larger life of the world. These encounters arouse children's curiosity and feeling of kinship with Earth. Now, you mentioned also that now more than ever is the time to nurture children's connection with a natural world. Could you explain a little bit more about why you think it's so important for children to learn to love and cherish our planet?
Well, I think it's going to be a major focus of children's lives as they grow up, as we do deal with the effects of various ecological. Well, I think it's very important for us all too, but certainly for our children, this is going to be the major focus of their lives as growing up as adolescents and as adults, because it is so vital that we do healing and regeneration of the ecosystems that support our lives. And we are at a crisis point with this. But more than that, there is the great joy that comes in being in the natural world and the outdoor life. And, unfortunately, part of the growing urbanization as well as increasing online life means that children are getting less time outside. And it's not helping children's health and well-being. They thrive when they get outside. It helps children's imagination, their creativity, their ability to develop confidence in their physical selves. And also it has a very calming influence, and it helps the immune system. So there's many, many benefits, and there's many joys, as well as there is a great necessity for us to understand more and to come to our life from the sense of a central love for ecosystems.
I'd love to read another paragraph from your article. Here we go. So quoting you again. Most young children are natural scientists and adventurers, happily becoming absorbed in studying the movement of ants or climbing trees. This may look like playtime, but is also a vital activity for developing an understanding and bonding with nature's processes. When adult carers support nature connectedness by providing plenty of unstructured outdoor play and encouraging a child's natural curiosity, they lay the foundations for ongoing care and resourcefulness. Now, can you please tell us why you think it's so important for parents to provide more opportunities for unstructured outdoor play?
Because the children won't get that without parents actually providing that opportunity. And I think that includes both the park that's beloved by a child. You know, children develop a very strong sense of place, and often a love for a particular tree or a bird that they might always get to see down in that park. And children learn from their parents about what's important. So if they see their parents there with them valuing and being absorbed in what they are absorbed in, then it communicates to the child that this is both a lovely thing to happen as well as an important focus to have in life. And I think there's a tremendous adventure there for parents and children in learning about the natural world together through observation, really tuning the senses into what's going on in the natural world, the smells, the sounds, the sights, and then to follow that up through books and through wildlife programs and so on.
Unstructured outdoor play may be challenging for a lot of families, given that in a lot of major cities with high density living now, and the ability to be able to get outdoors to parks and natural settings. When here in Melbourne, we're quite lucky because we, people that live close to the city, we do have some beautiful sort of city gardens, etc. But not all cities and all people that live in high density areas have that ability. Do you have any tips, if any at all, for families that want to be able to give their children unstructured outdoor play, however, don't necessarily have the ability to have access to enough or the right sort of settings?
Look, I think it's a matter of making do with what you can have. And, especially with young children, they can get very absorbed in one plant and a line of ants coming in and out of that plant. So though there's, it's wonderful to have big space, small space works well too, even if it is just a courtyard or a balcony. It's about letting the child kind of settle down and really getting down with the child and saying, what can we see is going on here? Are there any ants around? Or is the bird noticing what we're doing down here? And things like that. But I think it's important that we as citizens make very clear to our politicians that we all want access to outdoor areas close to where we live, and that we want increased tree canopies, which both helps with increasing heat, but also draws in more birds and more insects, which is all part of what we need to connect with and to appreciate more.
I've previously worked with a lot of city councils, and in particular the City of Melbourne, and know it's within their strategy to be able to ensure that they are providing enough sort of outdoor space. And I think that is just an important part of any local government area's strategies to ensure that there's enough outdoor play areas for children and families. So even if it is a little bit of a walk to the park, it's a matter of finding the right areas to give children the opportunity for that unstructured outdoor play. And like you said before, there is some wonderful, the amount of information that's available via documentaries and those types of things as well, even on free-to-air television with the likes of the BBC's David Attenborough's series as well. There is unlimited opportunity to be able to give children access and the insights to the things that are most important about outdoor life. I'd love to also know, from your perspective, how is the COVID-19 virus making us more aware of human-caused ecological destructions in our world?
Well, I think, yes, we've talked already about how it's bringing to awareness the problems that are caused by habitat destruction, including increased risk of viruses.
Mm-hmm.
On the more positive side, we've seen a tremendous reduction of air pollution particularly, and particulate pollution. People probably have seen those photos of what Delhi looks like now compared to how it looked 2 months ago, and for some cities to see blue skies for the first time. And what research is coming out to show, people are more vulnerable to COVID-19 in cities where air pollution is typically very high. Otherwise, there's high use of petrol fuel cars particularly. So this is telling us yet again how important it is that we find alternative ways of getting about that are not dependent on petrol, because it emits carbon and it emits air particulates, which are very detrimental to respiratory health. So again, this is another part of learning those connections. But it's also, I think, helping us to see, our environment could really appreciate being more thought of and less used in a way which has no thought for what the consequences of human action is on the habitat and the flora and fauna.
And in your opinion, what can we be doing from home and just within our families on a day-to-day basis to help care for our environment a little bit more during this time of quarantine?
Well, I think it'd be interesting for every family to find out to think about the changes they've made. People seem to be walking and cycling a whole lot more. And I've seen reports from overseas. In Milan, they've decided to increase the amount of space for pedestrians and cycleways as a result, because it creates a better city. So some of this is going, well, actually, perhaps my lifestyle and how I feel is being helped by going slower in some cases, or growing my own food, thinking more about local food and so on, as well as the increased walking, the cycling, and the appreciating of parks. I've heard a lot of reports of people saying how much they just appreciate the parks now that this is our big way of getting out and getting exercise and being able to wave to the neighbours and so on. So that appreciation hopefully will continue on. In that way. So I think it also is helpful for us to realise that we can make changes. Now, some of the changes with COVID-19 have been very hard, and some people are particularly feeling the brunt of that. We're not feeling it in an equal way at all. But if we can understand that we can make changes if we plan for them and look after those who may be worse affected by changes, it does help us understand that we don't have to live as we have been living in a way that is so detrimental to planetary health, which is ultimately detrimental to our health and the health of other species.
Mm-hmm. And how, in your opinion, how can we keep up the campaign for climate action during this time?
Oh, well, I think this is a good time to be sitting down and writing to your state, your local MPs, your state MPs, your federal MPs. They do listen when they get a letter. And so if there's something you want to advocate for, whether it is cycleways or parks or increased climate action, as I said before, politicians are deciding where are they going to put stimulus money into what industries. And this is the time for us to be pushing that stimulus money goes into renewable energies rather than, say, opening up more coal mines or initiating new fracking, which will drive up emissions greatly. And we can see more and more why we might want to go a different way, and the potential for developing manufacturing industries here in Australia, which will feed into this kind of change of energy production and transmission. So get out there, start advocating, and find a campaign. I don't know if your people here are very aware of 1 Million Women. That's a tremendous organisation which is dedicated to empowering women to embark on climate action at every level, and it does terrific posts on what to do around the home to reduce your carbon footprints, and also women-led initiatives in various different spheres. So that's a great one to look for. Or Australian Parents for Climate, making submissions, writing letters and so on. And the other thing is have a conversation, talk to people, talk to your family, talk to your friends about how they're feeling, what they're valuing, and how you might get together and lobby for increased climate action.
Great points. And also in your article, you speak about the fact that children's outdoor life has been eroded in recent generations through urbanizations. Definitely the amount of time we spend online in our digital life now, with screen time and education and parenting practices, all contribute to what, and there's a wonderful author that you have quoted in your article, Richard Louv. He's the author of, as you mentioned, a groundbreaking book. The title is The Last Child in the Woods, and he describes that's it. Wonderful. Hold it up. Wonderful. As nature deficit disorder caused by decreased outdoor experience and play. Can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Yes, look, he did wonderful groundbreaking work. It's been around for a little while, this book, but it's generated a lot more research since then, all of which has backed up the things he was saying. And I think it's particularly, his work has particularly helped to stimulate things like bush schools and bush kindergartens. You know, the thing about having vegetable gardens in schools and so on. So I think teachers know if they can get the kids out for these kind of educational activities outside, the children settle down better when they come back in the classroom. Louv particularly wrote about ADD and ADHD and how much research there is to show how much children who struggle with these kind of issues are helped by having increased time in the outdoor world. And you know, that really alerts us to actually we're all the same. You've probably heard of forest bathing. That's become something which has been
No, what's that?
It's come out of Japan. It's really the idea, which, I mean, I think a lot of this is common sense, but we have strayed from common sense, that if we go and walk quietly and mindfully in the bush or in a forest, that it renews our spirits, it relaxes our nervous system, it helps us to focus and concentrate. So it's kind of the very opposite of the, you know, sitting on the computer screen and just having endless stuff bombarded.
Like me, yes.
To us, yeah, like all of us. And that we will, our health, our minds improve from being out in green, and that even green itself is a very positive colour for calming and so on. And the other thing I think came out of Louv's work too was how healing nature is. And there's been a lot of research that shows, you know, if you're in hospital and you have a window looking at a tree, you will get your rates of recovery will be higher than those who don't have access to that window or the tree or even a poster of the forest. So we're programmed to feel good in the natural world.
Yeah, you've given us so much food for thought today. If you were to summarise your key points, Sally, for any parent watching, what would they be?
Get outside and play with your child, have a wonderful time, and practice gratitude for all the gifts of our living world.
Wonderful. And if parents have got any other questions and or would like to reach out to you, whereabouts can they find you?
Oh, you can look at me up in LinkedIn or on Facebook, Sally Gillepsie, author, Facebook site.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm extremely grateful and I can't wait for our next chat. Take care. Thank you.
You too, Rachel. Thank you. It's been lovely. Thank you.
Bye.